So how do you get people to want to buy a curved television when they already have flat televisions that they're perfectly happy with,
Yep.
that are more expensive than flat televisions, that there aren't many around that people have been using and can say are better, I guess?
Yep.
So they're not proven to be better, but that's about it. Yeah.
That's the challenge?
That's a challenge.
Okay. Great. Any clarifying questions, guys? So is there, what's the sort of budget that we've got to do this?
In terms of spend?
Yeah.
It's pretty big. Pretty
Okay,
big.
okay.
Lovely.
Large, let's say.
Large.
Yep.
Epically huge. Nothing is off limits.
Yep, great. So we've got budget. Any clarifying questions, Glenn?
No.
You right? Coops, you right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start the clock then. Spell.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's a tough proposition. I get that. I probably wouldn't buy it, but that has a lot to do with who I am as a person, my resources, and what I value. The thing is that there are actually people in the country that really value what you've just described. So have to have the latest technology, are really into an experience where their home says a lot about them as a person, and they're actually driven a lot by ego. And the trick to cracking this is actually looking at the segmentation of the country. The first place I would look is into the mosaic segments to line up those segments that index for wanting to buy those sorts of products in those sorts of situations. And then I'd be looking to get a geodemographic layout of them and find where they're living. Because whilst it's a small percentage of the population, it's still going to be like 15% of 24.7 million or whatever we are now. And there's probably enough in there to get your sales at least first, from the first port of call. And so while these people that fit in there typically happen to be the higher income earners, might not necessarily be described as, tech early adopters, you've got to remember they went through the last decade. And the last decade means that they have a smartphone, they've got flat screen TVs, they're on computers all the time, they're running Apple TV, they're doing all this stuff. So a TV which is very close to something I already understand and a pastime I spend a lot of money on, when leveraged on those emotional benefits and the smarts to target them very effectively, I reckon it's a doable job.
Okay. So I don't believe Samsung made this TV if there's not a benefit over a flat screen of some description. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find the benefit, and we need to find what changes in my life because I have that benefit. What's the implication of that benefit? And the place we go for that is we have to start in the features. We have to understand what is it about those features? What is it about the curve? What's it about the angle? And we need to find one thing which we fixate on and we highlight. And what we do by doing that and creating that benefit and blowing it up is that you set up expectations for people which are just then fulfilled, because that's the expectations they have going in. So if they believe it's a better picture, it'll be a better picture. So that's the start point. The second thing I do is, from a comms perspective, we need to demonstrate this is the type of stuff that's so new, it needs to be seen and played with to be believed. So this is what Apple do so well. Go into their shop, fiddle with everything, play with it as much as you like. We need to demonstrate how this works, and we need it side by side with a flat screen. And we need to show the winning goal at the 1996 World Cup that you just couldn't see the angle if you were sitting here in the room. You need to demonstrate those benefits in a really, really clear way to bring that out. And of course, to Jeff's point, to the right people. It starts with who are the right people that we're going to focus on. Ash.
So it's a case of Roger's adoption curve that actually says, you've got your innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and then your laggards. And what you're trying to do is engage to make sure that the early adopters actually get the reward for adopting early. I don't know what the release schedule's like, but what I would do is I would announce an exclusive release of the first 1,000. Across Australia, there's only going to be 1,000 of these for the first 6 months. Now, is 1,000 a big number? We don't know the sales figures, but what you can do is actually pick that number so it's got that desirability of exclusivity and people know they get a window. Why do we do that? Because we know that these guys will absolutely fall over each other. You're also building a database by having people go in. So this is actually a lottery, and this is a game of chance. At this stage, you're building your database. So that was where Jeff went. I then go on to the side-by-side demonstration. And as Glenn said, The differences between the two screens might only be apparent under certain light conditions, or only be apparent side to side, or might only be slight. We go back to what a brand does. A brand sets up positive expectations that are then self-fulfilling. Trying to sell something on an emotional benefit alone, very tough. Having an emotional benefit that's backed up with a rational proposition such as, you'll notice in this light condition, this is the difference. And if they're side by side, people will get it. Set up a positive expectation that's then self-fulfilling. So what I would do is enter into a relationship once we've ticked off this, and we need to get this early majority. In Harvey Norman, what you do is you have a environment set where if it's low light or high light or whatever the advantage is, you set that environment, you have the best LCD versus this curved TV, and then you have a game of skill, which is in 25 words or less, tell us the difference you notice. Because what people are doing, it's not just the noticing, it's the mental exercise of they want to win, so they're going to construct a difference, be that real or otherwise, it actually becomes real, and what they're left with every time they enter is this TV is better. It will be tangible and real, made real by the exercise of the entry. There also, you've got 2 points of data capture where you can get actually high frequency access back to that audience. If you get those two things right, the rest of the campaign will fall into place.
Yeah, so bit of media, bit of connection. Probably looking now at comms would be a place that I'd find really, really interesting. I used to, in a past life, my job was to sell beer, and we talked about this thing called the barter fence, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. And the issue with the barter fence, or the crux of it, was that the beer's more or less the same percentage. It comes in a bottle that's kind of similar. It tastes relatively the same. You can argue on that. The benefit functionally is quite similar, and yet we had to make these products very different. And so as soon as a new brand comes out and it's basically selling on an emotional proposition that connects very tightly with a market segment, you want to arm your consumers with the reason that they can say, so that they're not just that twat that's buying the new cool beer. So when you've just gone out and spent $15,000 on a TV that's curved, 2 years after you just spent $5,000 on the one that's flat, I need to have something to say that can justify that spend to myself internally and give me the rational justification, but also to someone else. So I'd be looking for the spend defense. And in doing that, I'd want to look at the usage occasions. So I can understand from a curved TV would have lots of functional benefits in the way that you would view it. But everyone has a different style of viewing and consuming TV. So I would want to have just on the box and in the way that I describe it from a comms point of view, word salad there, I'd like to have the pain point around the usage occasion. Is it that you have a particularly wide room, a particularly light room? Is it that you watch a lot of movies? And then from that, I'd like to match those benefits to the usage occasion of the product, so that I very clearly say, for people just like you that enjoy TV like you, our curved screen has these functional benefits. So it really steps through.
Here's a left of field thought for you, is actually just don't sell it. So take a step back and go, when do people actually invest in these kind of technologies? Oftentimes it's when they've moved house, they've moved into a new place and like, you know what, let's scrap the old speakers, scrap everything, we're going to get a new stuff that looks really slick in this house. So sell a package, and sell a package in a way that sell a package in the way that McDonald's sell fries, right? You never want fries, but you always walk out with fries. The curved TV becomes the fries, right? So sell it in a way that it just makes sense to upgrade to the curved screen, because the speakers are thrown in, the DVD's thrown in, the Apple TV, everything else that goes around it is thrown in. So that's another angle.
Okay,
Ash.
so just to wrap up there, I think there's 4 steps to it. The first thing is actually getting where long-term success or failure depends on understanding Rogers' adoption curve. So you can Google Rogers' adoption curve and get strategies that set you up for what's called jumping the chasm. In what a successful launch looks like particularly, I'd look at an exclusive launch, limited amount, lottery chance that's a data capture opportunity. I'd then move into the side-by-side comparison, and we saw this was the only thing that really unlocked the difference between plasma and LCD. Why? Because it became an environmental construction issue in a physical space. Once again, do a deal with someone like Harvey Norman, spot the difference competition, its data capture sets you up for the second stage there. The third stage is actually looking at what Coops mentioned, the purchase defense. Now that's an excuse for education which actually has utility around it. So once a week for 5 weeks, you can have an autoresponder that says, to get the most out of your curved TV, here's the type of content or the type of lighting environment or something. So a partnership with Sony, they might even provide free movies and content, something around that, or Universal, somebody that gives you an experience that adds value post the purchase. Hope we get a round screen one of them next time.
Yeah,
we need a new one now.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you very
Absolutely.
much.